Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very thankful because you guys are here to show your support. And especially, although this message is for everybody, but this is specially intended to the young families who have kids. So I really thought of a topic that you all could benefit from. So that's why I spent many days to find this kind of information that you will observe here this afternoon. First of all, is it okay to give our iPhones, iPads, our mobile phones, or other devices to our babies and children? What are the immediate and long-term effects of these devices on the physical and mental health of a child? If you want to know the answer to these questions, please stay until the end of this presentation this afternoon. Because aside from learning how to unlock the giftedness in children, we will also address these important questions, which I'm sure will truly give very informative information, if not very alarming answers. So stand by and stay tuned. And Sister Lavon, I hope you can come up with a few questions. So we'll have a quiz, like 5 questions, and then we can, yeah. Okay. Everybody, a baby's brain is born with almost unlimited potential. A child's early development experience, however, fine-tunes the brain connections and restricts brain functions and plasticity to a narrower set of abilities. The habits we form from childhood make no small difference, but rather they make all the difference. And Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Say, train up your child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. It's a very powerful verse, right? Okay. Let me tell you a story. This is Mrs. M. Not her real name, but she's from the Philippines. And she's fluent in speaking both her native dialect and the English language. When asked about her proficiency of the English language, she said, "Excellent." When asked how well she spoke in English, if she has picked the American accent after years of living in the US, Mrs. M said, "As long as I can be understood, what's the matter with that?" So Mrs. M married in the US and gave birth to 2 lovely children, a girl and a boy. Mrs. M talks to her children daily in the English language. When I asked her about her kids' English language proficiency, she replied, "Very good." When I asked her if they got the American accent when they speak, she said, "Yes. After all, I'm their teacher." But the truth is, Mrs. M's children, who were born and raised in the US, speak like an American and sound like an American, but not so much Mrs. M. So some questions come to our mind. How did the children of Mrs. M attain a native speaker proficiency of the English language and speak with an admirable American accent? On the other hand, why is it so hard for Mrs. M to learn to sound like an American when she speaks English? Is there hope for Mrs. M to attain a native speaker proficiency with perfect American English accent? What do you think? Well, we'll give answers to these questions later. Now, every child is born with the ability to learn any language. And it is true that young children can learn multiple languages at the same time with remarkable ease. But how do children do it? What happens that allows these children to absorb these strange sounds, and what kind of impact does it have in their lives? First question is, how do they do it? Before answering this question, I'd like to introduce to you a concept used in human studies which explains the powerful ability of children to learn language more efficiently than adults. And it is called the sensitive period of development. Don't forget this, the word. It's sensitive period of development. It is that time or stage in a person's development where they are more responsive to stimulus and quicker to learn particular skills. That's the sensitive period of development. And language, learning the language, has a sensitive period. Now, this is an interesting graph because it shows us that the sensitive period starts after birth and gradually declines until 7 years old. So at 1, 2 years old, you see the peak there of learning a language, like let's say English language, or if you're in the Philippines, Filipino language. And then it gradually declines until 7 years old. Moreover, different aspects of language like phonetics or speech sounds, syntax, or the arrangement of verbs to form sentences have different sensitive periods. This graph is showing us that about 5 to 6 months of age, the baby will coo and babble when contented and maybe babbling or producing a simple combination of consonant and vowels. But by 12 to 18 months of age, he or she will be speaking in single word sentences and will understand more than 50 words. By 24 months or 1 year, his vocabulary will be expanded to 200 words, or approximately 200 words, and he'll be producing hundreds and different 2 or 3 word sentences. And by the age of 5, the baby will have a vocabulary of 2,000 words and will use many of the grammatical structures of her native language without ever taking formal language lesson. With regard to syntax, here is a very interesting graph. It's figure 1. It shows the relationship between age of arrival in the United States and total score correct on the test of English grammar. So you can see there that for native speakers, they have let's say if that's the highest point, that they have very high point in grammar. Whereas for those individuals who came here in the US right before they were 7 years old, you see the scores are almost similar to native speakers, right? But if they came here in the US at a later time point, let's say when they were 35 years old, the score for the grammar is now low, okay? So with that graph, we can infer that a critical period for learning language is what age? Should be, what is that period where you should introduce your children? If you want your children to learn this language with native speaker proficiency, what is that age? It should be before 7 years old. Yeah. Before 7. Yeah. Yeah. But of course, with 2 to 3, they're not yet able to articulate, right? With 7, they're able to do that. So before 7 years old. So what is the reason behind it? So scientists scanned the brains of these people who learned a second language before age 7. So when they heard that language, it activates the same brain areas that are activated in native speakers. Whereas for those who came after 7 years old, it activates other brain areas. So we don't know which brain area, probably not the language center. Interestingly, many researchers have observed these patterns not only, and this applies not only to syntax, but also accent. Okay? It's not only about sentence or grammar, but it's also related with accent. Another interesting aspect in language is language retention. We've heard of stories like these children have been adopted by, let's say, American parents before they were 1 year old. They came to the United States. Let's say they were Chinese. They came to the United States. And then it's just surprising that they are still able to learn faster the Chinese language compared to us when we learn Chinese, you know? And that is language retention. They are able to retain that kind of memory for that language. And so what is the reason behind it? Part of the reasons is because of that memory, as I told you a while ago, and the other answer has been provided by brain scans. So we have 3 sets of brain scans. We have bilinguals, those who are able to speak Chinese and French. Adoptees, the one that I told you about, they were adopted before they were 12 months old. Let's say they went to France, and then individuals who were born and raised in France, you can speak French only. Now, looking at the figures on top, do you see any similarities or differences? Like if you compare the bilinguals and the adoptees, do you see any similarity there with the part of the brain that is activated? Right? you can see the same areas of the brain that are activated in bilinguals were also activated in the adoptees. Meanwhile, for those individuals who are just speaking French, born and raised in France, it activates the other brain areas when they listen to Chinese tones. So you can see here that not only the memory for that language is retained, but also the brain area that are activated were similar. So if you want to have a linguist in your family, start training early. And what did I say about the important age that you have to begin training? That is, before 7 years old. This is an important question. Are there benefits and advantages to learning 2 or more languages? I know that some of our households here, the kids only speak 1 language, right? Whereas for others, they might be able to speak 2. Are there benefits if our children, the future of the world, are speaking 2 languages? Yes, there are benefits. One is increased intelligence. Mas bright sila. In the past, experts thought that learning a second language will interfere with child's academic and intellectual development. But in the New York Times article written by whatever his name, so he said that he provided an answer as to why bilinguals are smarter. It is because when these children who are bilinguals, even just when they speak 1 language, it is able to activate both language systems in their brain. And so when that one is activated, it creates an internal conflict in their brain. And so once there is internal conflict there, the infants have the ability to exercise their cognitive muscles. So it provides an opportunity for them to exercise their cognitive muscles, their cognitions, because there's a conflict produced because of speaking 2 languages. So they end up being smarter at many tasks and being more intelligent than monolinguals. And learning another language is also good for social skills, as reported by this New York Times article. The superior social skills of bilinguals. In particular, the bilinguals, they show a kind of behavior which is intuition. They have more intuition than monolinguals. What is intuition? What is intuition? It is the ability to understand or know something without any direct evidence or reasoning process. Nakay kutub. Yeah, in Tagalog. So, now, what about children who speak 1 language but are regularly exposed to another? That's the case, right? That's the majority of our kids. That's the majority of the case of our kids. So, although they speak English language, but then they could hear us talking in Bisaya in the family. So, if you compare their, let's say, cognitive skills with kids who only speak 1 language, are they similar? Are they different? Or do they excel more in this field? Some studies showed that they were as talented as the bilinguals, but did not perform better than other monolinguals in cognitive tasks. In short, they are not smarter than monolinguals. Ang smarter gyud kadtong bilinguals. So it is important that we teach also our children another language. Good for intelligence and also good for social skills. Huh? Unsa? Yeah, it's good. But as an adult learning a new language, do I still have hope? Na ba kay pag-asa to have that kind of American English accent? Huh? Huh? Now, I told you a while ago about sensitive period of development, right? Luckily, that sensitive period of development is not fixed, okay? So once you just introduce the appropriate stimulation beyond that period, you are still able to attain that skill, such as language, with native speaker proficiency. But then, this requires a lot of practice and effort on your part. So kinahanglan mag-study gid pud ka maayo and put yourself in an environment of native speakers. But it's so hard here in California, especially when you work in Loma Linda University and your coworkers are Filipino. How can you ever attain that kind of native speaker proficiency? So, while it is true that sounds and syntax have sensitive periods, certain aspects of language such as grammar and vocabulary learning do not have sensitive periods. That is, they do not close. So we can still observe that although infants may sound like an American, or children may sound American, but we are still better than them in grammar, right? Because grammar in these areas, they do not close. But then age at which one first encounters a second language is only one of the many determinants of ultimate level of proficiency attained in that language. I'm showing this graph again, which I showed you a while ago, because this also applies to not only the syntax, but also to accent. Okay, now let's go to another skill that is important for children, and that is musical learning. Do you want to have kids who are musicians? Yes or no? Yes. I'd like to call a musician. Please come here, Christy Luren. Okay, we know her, right? She's very gifted at playing the piano. So I just have a few questions for her. So when was that age that you started learning to play the piano?
5.5.
5.5 years old. 5.5 years old. Huh? Okay. So now, what are the advantages of being an excellent pianist?
I guess meeting people who are proficient in music and learning from them. That's one thing, and also, like, it's easier for you to learn the music when you've kind of like, you understand it better, or I guess so. Where are you going with this question?
Remember in MVC, we invited violinists, the famous violinist, the Caballo family, and so they were looking for an excellent pianist also to accompany them in their presentation, and they asked Christine Luren. And yeah, it was really a very great experience, and I heard their concert. It was really marvelous. Okay, now, so she started learning the piano at 5.5 years old. Do you think if you started learning the piano at around 10 years old, do you think you would still attain the same level of proficiency?
Actually, yes. Yes, I was just telling Kuya a while ago, I started at 5.5, and when I started, most teachers are more focused in learning the notes first, but I was very ear-oriented, so my teachers were nurturing that. So unfortunately, even though I started at 5.5, my technique was very poor. So when I was in 3rd grade, I went to a piano teacher and wanted her to teach me, but she wouldn't take me. She would only take me on the basis if she would start me all over again. So I was 10 years old and had to start from the beginning, from scratch. And so I believe that it's possible. Yeah.
So you see, musical learning is also, it has a sensitive period of development, meaning it does not close. Even though she started again at 10 years old, but then with constant practice, she was able to attain that kind of proficiency, that level of proficiency. 31. Huh? Huh? Oh, really?
She's 24 though, but there's a video on YouTube. She learned the violin in 2 years, and every day she took a video of herself. Not 24, I think. 24. Not by hope, I think. And then by the 2 years, she played pretty good. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe that person is jobless. Yeah, because now, I mean, I'm 30, over 30. I'm focused now on my job rather than learning how to play the piano again. Thank you, Christy. Thank you for sharing your experience. Here is a very interesting study conducted by researchers from Concordia University. So they compared how strong the two sides of the brain were connected in individuals who began music lessons before age 7 and one group who began music training after the age 7. An important structure that they looked at is the corpus callosum, the one that connects the left and the right hemisphere. And they noticed that in children who learned musical instruments before the age seven, their corpus callosum is kind of thicker, meaning there is more connections between the two hemispheres, and especially the areas that are more connected are the one in charge of motor control and sensory input of the hands. So they have good mind and hand coordination. Okay, those individuals who started learning the musical instrument before age 7. So interesting study, right? And here is even a even more interesting phenomenon, and that is called absolute or perfect pitch. You know that characteristic of musicians? Absolute or perfect pitch. That absolute or perfect pitch is displayed by this lady. This lady is the first lady of song. Her name is Ella Fitzgerald. She's an American jazz singer. She has absolute or perfect pitch to the extent that when they have rehearsals, all of the instruments need to be tuned according to her. Like she will say, okay, we need all of us to be in one key together. Let's say one note, do, and she will just sing do, and then everybody will just tune their instruments. She is really gifted. Now, absolute pitch implies some of the following abilities without a reference tone. For example, you can identify individual pitches like A, B, C sharp played on various instruments, or you can name the key of a given piece of tonal music, like this song is the key of D. You can reproduce piece of tonal music in the correct key even days after hearing it. You can accurately sing a named pitch, and you can even name the pitches of common everyday sounds like car horns, like ing, oh that is do, like ing, or even alarm, ding, 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 that is re, Okay. Now, individuals who possess absolute pitch constitute about 0.01% of the population only. So if we have 100 people here, there's only one. Okay? Now, do you possess absolute pitch? Today, we will look for that individual who has absolute pitch. I have invited Christy. This is for everybody. If you have a pen and a paper, this is a quiz for everyone. By the way, a quick review. We don't have a note which is K or L, okay? We don't have M. It's only from A to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's no H, okay? So, if you have a pen and a paper, we'll have a small activity. Christy will play 5 chords. As soon as you listen to these chords, write down what these chords are. 5 chords. She will also play 5 individual notes. Once you hear these notes, write down all the answers to the question. Okay? So, are you ready? If you don't, we have pen there. If you have, let's say, I'm not sure if you can get everything correct, but the highest pointer will be given a prize. Okay? Yeah, and the prize is piano. That piano will be yours. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, you have a pen and a paper. Christy, are you ready? We have 5 chords. She will play 5 chords, individually name them. Huh? Yeah, chords like B flat, G, B sharp, not B sharp, C sharp, B flat minor, augmented, those kind of things. Yeah. Okay, ready? Are you ready? 5 notes, 5 chords. Ready? First chord. Make a guess because the highest pointer will be given a prize. Ang pinakataas og point ha? Ang pinakataas og point ha? Mo na tagatog prize. Okay, that was the first chord. Second? Second? Okay, that's the second chord. Yeah, can you? Okay. Third chord. Let's play it again. Fourth chord. Fourth chord. And the last chord. Last chord. Okay. Tell me honestly, is it hard or easy? Very hard, right? Chords are very hard. Let's make it easy. She will just play one note. So all you have to do is answer one single note. Let's say C, C sharp. You don't have to answer C sharp minor anymore, or C sharp, however you call it. Okay? Now, all you have to do is just answer one note, and there are 5 notes that she's gonna play. Okay? Are we ready? She's gonna play every note 2 times only. Cover yourself there, your fingers. Okay. Now, the one who will get the highest point will be declared the winner. Okay, first note. Just take a guess. Again, play it. Second note. Third note. Do it again. Fourth note. Kalisod, no? Do it again. And the last note. Okay, now, exchange papers. Please don't exchange with your husband or wife because it will be biased. Okay. Exchange papers. Please be honest, huh? Be honest, it's Saturday today. It's still Saturday. You don't have to lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness, especially on Sabbath. You're breaking 2 commandments at the same time. Pitch perfect. Okay, ready? Ready? Did you exchange papers? But be honest lang, huh? Okay. The first note is C. How did you know? Really? The second note is G. Third note is E. Fourth note is B. Fifth note is D. Okay, what are your scores? 2. Who got 5 points? 5? 4. 3. Kinsa? 5? 5? Really? Wow, Elaine! Musical training. So we have a winner. Okay, yeah, just claim your prize later, okay? Don't worry, we still have 1 quiz, and that is to be given by Lavon. If you're close with Lavon, you know what to do. Now, question is there a sensitive period for the absolute pitch? Yes, there is, and that is absolute pitch is typically seen in individuals who started musical training before they are 6 years old. So before they are 6 years old. So training that begins after the age of 9 rarely leads to absolute pitch, and there are no known cases of an adult successfully acquiring it. Although we have absolute pitch, there's also another phenomenon called the relative pitch, which some adults can learn. And the relative pitch is like that adult will just listen to a pitchfork, ding, and then let's say it's G, and then he can just adjust himself, say, oh, this is A. He can just say A, B, C, something like that. That's relative pitch. But a question has been raised. Can adults, oh, by the way, absolute pitch has a genetic component. So if you have parents who have this amazing absolute pitch, then there's a probability that you also will inherit that. But then training is very much important as well. So despite the fact that there's a genetic component, with appropriate training, you can still achieve that. So, question is, can adults learn perfect pitch? So they made a study on how they do it, adults could still learn perfect pitch, and indeed they can. And that is by adults taking a drug. And I will not tell you that drug, because that drug is able to open again the certain period of their brain where they're sensitive to absolute pitch, so that even though they're still adults, but then it's open, they can still learn with practice. Yeah, that drug is a mood stabilizing drug. Yeah, I will not tell you the name of the drug because you will start buying that drug, but that is the structure of the drug. Okay. Yeah, that is the structure of the drug. What is it? If you can guess, I'll give you that organ. It's the two words, the last is an acid. Okay, but I'll tell you. Okay, now, another. Okay. Now, another scale which has a sensitive period developing is cognitive learning. Do you want to raise the next Einstein? Do you want to? Of course, we want kids who will be very successful, doctors, lawyers, businessmen, the smarty people, smarty pants. We want to have those kind of kids. After all, kids are an investment, right? We're spending a lot of money to them for milk, for Cerelac, Similac, all the lac and all the lax, laxative. So we want a return of investment, right? And there are many things that we can do for us to have children who are intelligent. And one is intelligent interaction. It is the act of frequently and expansively conversing using adult words, not baby words, with your child as your child responds in pre-speech vocalization or words. Okay? Intelligent interaction. Intelligent interaction with a child from birth. Layla. Okay. Intelligent interaction with a child from birth through the first 3 years of life is strongly associated with development of higher cognitive ability, higher language skills, better school readiness, and better life trajectory. Okay, intelligent interaction. You use your adult words, not baby words, when talking to them. Oh, no. Okay, you talk to them as if they're, although they could understand. Chip is good at baby words. Oh, yeah, see? Okay, now is there a sensitive period for intelligent interaction with the child? As I told you, the first 3 years is very important. Oh, there's an author who traced. He's the author of the Meaningful Differences in Everyday Experience of Young American Children. He says this: the more parents talk with their children from birth to age 3, the more likely their child will excel academically later in life. Because engaging in intelligent interaction with your baby during the first 3 years of life increases the growth of neural synapses in their brain. Like the connection between brain cells, they're more connected and they have more connections. And engages the infant's brain intrinsic ability for recognition of language and lay the foundation of learning. So what are the components of intelligent interaction? Parents should provide adult word input to their infants and toddlers by talking to them, by reading books to them, and telling them stories. So don't make it an excuse that you're busy. If you want to raise smart children, try to talk to them, read books to them, tell them stories. And also do conversational turns. That's why it's called intelligent interaction, because there's a conversation turn. Like you talk, he talks. Okay? It's a conversational turn. Now what about adult monologuing? Like you're the only one talking, like, oh, and then the boy said, I want to eat milk. And then the mommy said, okay, and then your baby will just listen to you doing the monologue. What about TV viewing? You just let your children watch TV. Anyway, they can hear conversation. That is not a conversational turn. And that has not been associated with cognitive improvement later in life. Now, I'd like to introduce to you two types of talk that you can introduce to babies. Extra talk versus business talk. Now, extra talk is a non-essential talk spoken by choice and not by necessity. For example, again, it's not because you need to talk to a baby about that one. It's just you choose to talk to your baby about that. For example, look at that beautiful bird. Can you hear the bird singing to us? This is not a necessary talk that you have to talk with your children, right? This is spoken by choice. You chose to tell the topic to them. Okay, and there's another type of talk called the business talk, which I can hear very commonly among you guys, observing you, how you deal with your children. Business talk is like spoken out of necessity. Like, for example, don't throw your food. Don't go to that room, okay? That is business talk. You're talking to your child out of necessity. Now, which do you think of these two kinds of talks would lead to enhanced cognitive, It's actually extra talk, because you're letting the child imagine, and more vocabulary also can lead to more conversational turns. Okay, for example, Jibo is now doing an extra talk. Sailor, look at the milk. It's hot. Okay? Anyway, don't forget that. Now, there is another type of talk called the infant-directed speech versus adult-directed speech. Now, when it is an infant-directed speech, adults will talk in high pitch, like, hello, okay? Hi. Okay, when you talk to your infants, you have to use high pitch and slow speaking rates. Speak slowly. And large vowel space sizes, A, B, C, something like that, okay? So you notice, what are the benefits of infant-directed speech? You can gain more infant attention. So you notice that infants are much more closer, or they interact more with their mothers than with their fathers. It's because mothers have higher pitch when they talk, right? Right? Whereas I think it's strange for daddies to be talking like, hi, I'm here, Laila. Hi. Where are you? Don't do that, right? Ayan will always say, Laila, come here, So Laila will be closer to Georgette than to Laila, okay? Because Georgette grabs her attention. So it is also associated with increased cognitive performance and enhanced long-term retention of words. Okay. So I told you language, what else? Musical learning, cognitive skills, they all have sensitive periods in early brain development. And even with other skills that you want to introduce to children, they have sensitive periods in brain development. Like if you want to have an individual or a baby who is good in numbers, you can see there the sensitive period in early brain development. So start training before age 5, because it gradually declines after age 7. But in general, it's really about before age 7, right? School years and all that. And if you want to raise also children who are good in sports, try to hit that period when the motor coordination is at peak. Okay. So I told you about sensitive period of development, that period when infants are very responsive to stimulus, and then that period that does not close, right? On the other hand, there's a term called the critical period of development, meaning it is a time when the environmental input is required for the proper development of a particular brain circuit, that if you are not able to introduce that stimulus at that time, then it might be very impossible to reverse the effects of that, okay? And one example is vision. And this is a case called amblyopia. Can you see any problem with the little girl there? The eyes, right? If you look at it, it might seem that it's normal, right? But one part of the eye is not normal, okay? One part of the eye is called the lazy eye, the right side, okay? Your right side. It's right. The right eye is a lazy eye. Yeah. Okay? So it does not function well. It is because there is a really a critical point for vision. Like if you're not able to introduce that input at that time, then you might not be able to correct that problem even in the future. And we give thanks to these people who were able to identify that critical period for vision, David Hubel and Thorsten Wiesel, who conducted their experiments in cats. What they did is they covered the eyes of the cats when they were still infants, and they covered the eyes of the cats when they were still adults. The effect in when they covered the eyes of the cats when they were adults is not as detrimental as when they covered the eyes when they were children. Okay? Another case which has a critical period of development is imprinting. Have you noticed that these ducklings will follow their mother wherever the mother goes? That is imprinting. And in fact, you can make these geese follow you, like wherever you go. Yeah. Because imprinting is that kind of behavior. Okay. Imprinting is a kind of behavior when the ducklings will follow the first moving object that they meet after hatching. Okay? So even though it's a human being, if they hatch and then they saw you, they will follow you. And the person who discovered that is Konrad Lorenz. And that duck actually follows him wherever he goes. Yeah. Yeah. He's a scientist. Yeah. So that duck follows him wherever he goes. And you can try it at home if you have ducks. Hatch the eggs, let them see you first. They will follow you forever. Yeah, that's imprinting. And why is it that there's this kind of behavior? It is because of pheromones. You know, the sense that one animal gives off for the other to smell. That's good for mating and for this. Now, what does this imprinting story tell about human development? So, one of the senses that are most developed in infants, like they develop early, is the sense of smell, right? Compared with the others. Remember when I talked with Jel about that time when she gave birth to, I don't know, the first or the second. Like even though, like a few days after giving birth to her, even though she places the baby somewhere here, but then she can just, even with eyes closed, she can just follow wherever her breast is to find milk. Because the most developed sense that, one of the senses that is most developed in infants is smell, sense of smell. And they have to depend on that for survival. So it is. Now, when we learn this critical period of development, sensitive period of development, what are the implications? First, regarding childhood adversity. Or when we expose our children to toxic stress during sensitive periods of development, it might have lifelong consequences for health, learning, and behavior. So like if we keep on scolding our children at that period of their development, it might have effect on their health later on, or even with their behavior. Child abuse, poverty, and all the others. It affects their brain areas. It also makes them more prone to diseases like cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, asthma, liver cancer, and depression. And they are also more prone to be involved in gangs or crimes. So it is important that during this stage here, we provide a good environment for them, bond with them, and control ourselves not to cause too much psychological trauma to each of them. Another implication is developmental disorders like autism. Autism is a disorder that is common now in the United States, even in developed countries. Why is it so? Probably because during the sensitive period development, critical periods, they have not been introduced to certain stimulus or stimuli, and then it kind of shut off, so they are poor now in social interaction. Another important disorder is ADHD, one of my interests. I can't help but show you that graph there, which is the number of synapses in the prefrontal cortex. You know, when the babies are born, they have about 100 billion brain cells, 100 billion, more than adults. But as time goes by, these neurons, they make connections, and as time goes by, they need to be cut, pruning. Like kung kanang tanom atong i-prune, because some connections are not necessary. So with 100 billion of neurons and so many connections, the brain has to cut some of them, the useless ones. And so you notice that it increases and then it decreases. And one of the critical ages that you have to take note is 6 years old in terms of ADHD. We can understand that children have short attention span before they reach 6 years old. But if they are still hyperactive, they are still inattentive, they are still impulsive beyond 6 years old, you need to be very careful with that. They might display symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is the most common neurodevelopmental disorder in childhood, US and elsewhere. Another important question is there a critical period to teach good behaviors? Yeah. Are you familiar with this test? The marshmallow test. It's an old test done by researchers from Stanford University. They did that in a nearby nursery school. So they tested 600 children aged 4 to 6 years old. They introduced each of them into an empty room with just one single marshmallow there. And they told their children, once you don't eat that marshmallow within 15 minutes, I'll give you one more. Okay? This is to measure their impulsiveness, if they're able to delay their gratification. Okay? So, do you think you're by the way, this is for 4 or 6 years old. How old is I say? 2. Okay, yeah, he will not pass. I can assure you. Oh, this is a test for 4 to 6-year-old children. So, they noticed that out of the 600 children who participated in this test, just a minority of them were impulsive. They just immediately, But some of them really were able to control themselves. They would just, like that expression of the child's face, how hard it is for them to control themselves, not to eat the marshmallow, just to be able to get a second serving of the marshmallow. Now, so these kids were followed up later, and based on parents' report, those who are able to delay, to show a delayed gratification behavior, they waited 15 minutes, they were described 10 years later by their parents as adolescents who were significantly more competent in academics. And they were, a few years later, these individuals, same individuals, were also higher in their scores in SAT. They were smarter than those who were impulsive. And just in 2011, they scanned the brains of these individuals who were able to delay and those individuals who were not able to delay. And they really noticed differences in the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe we mentioned last night, meaning because they're not impulsive, so there's really distinct differences between these brain structures. And also the striatum, which is involved in, let's say, drug addiction. You notice that drug addicts are more impulsive. That's why they take these drugs. It is because they have problems in their striatum and all that. Now, another test is called the Kagan test, okay? Now, personally, I'm very familiar with the marshmallow test, but I just came across with this Kagan test very recently. Now, a Kagan test is very easy. If you have 4 months old baby, put that baby in a bouncy seat like that and present him with a set of colorful new toys, one that he has never seen, one at a time, for 20 seconds each. Now, if the baby, once he's introduced with these new toys, one he's not seen before, for 20 seconds, if the baby keeps on shaking his legs and shouts and do all that, your baby may be at higher risk for developing serious anxiety over social interactions. Anxious, they're in the future, if they scream and cry when they show them this individual new toys, they later in their lives they are anxious. They have social anxiety problems. Whereas if you have babies who will just keep quiet, they can be reserved. And those are the individuals who will become, when they date with a person, they will be very calm. Okay. Now, what we do commonly is when we want to make our children calm when they're crying and we want them to behave, what we give them is cell phone, right? So this is now the answer to our question a while ago, the question that we raised a while ago. Is it okay to give our iPads or iPhones to children? And your answer a while ago, a very strong, resounding answer was no, okay? You'll know that no, but what are its effects? Okay? Here's a study that just came out recently in July 15, 2014, 2 years ago, but it just got media attention last year, or I think very recently. Like I got this paper few months ago, okay? And the title is Why Children Absorb More Microwave Radiation Than Adults, and What Are the Consequences? Okay, I'll just tell you the highlights of this study. So the microwave radiation here that it's talking about is the one that is similar to the one that's given off by cell phones, iPads, and other gadgets, okay? Now children absorb more microwave radiation, like the cell phone, iPads, more than adults by 2 times. Okay? Why is it so? Because the source is closer. They have shorter hands than adults, right? This is, let's say, how many meters? 1 meter probably. But for children, so the length, whether it is exposed with the iPad or iPhone, is shorter. So the tendency is they can absorb more microwave radiation than adults. And then it has been found that it actually affects their hippocampus, the one that stores memories, hypothalamus, and cerebellum. They absorb more microwave radiation by 1.6 to 3%, 2.5%, and others. And even the bone marrow. And we have to be careful with the bone marrow because it's the site where you produce these blood cells, right? And there are many cases of cancer because of bone marrow problems, leukemia, one of them, right? 10 times. They absorb 10 times microwave radiation than adults. Now, the microwave radiation from cell phones has been declared a possible carcinogen, class 2B. Class 2B, some of the examples are gasoline. Like if you expose yourself to gasoline, you have cancer in the future. Chloroform, lead. Lead is a very important material or element. It causes developmental disorder as well. Children are also at greater risk than adults when exposed to any carcinogen. So the younger the child is, the higher the risk. The earlier the first cell phone use, the higher the risk for brain cancer. So don't give your cell phones to babies. Huh? At the same time, it's actually the magnitude of the effect is similar to high lead levels. Overall, also, they noticed that there is an increased incidence in brain cancer in countries which has the more number of people who are using cell phones or wireless devices. There's a trend nowadays, like in the US, higher incidence of brain cancer. India and other places, yeah. Huh? Yeah, they're technologically advanced there in India as well. Now, here's one thing that you have to remember. The tumors induced in children due to microwave radiation may not be diagnosed until well into adulthood. And we know that some cancers can just be diagnosed later. Like we don't know it, right? Because the effect is not abrupt. It's like slowly, gradual. The fetus is particularly vulnerable to microwave radiation. We have pregnant mothers who are exposed to microwave radiation because of wireless devices. In a mouse study, the babies of these mothers who have been using cell phones at these frequencies, they showed ADHD-like behaviors, produced cell death, and decreased the number of these important cells in the hippocampus which involve in memory. And it is also able to generate the myelin sheath, which is protective and which is also involved in faster conduction of signals. So the microwave, and we know that there are microwave radiation emitting toys that are sold in the market, right? The article clearly said that iPads, tablets, laptop computers, and cell phones are not children's toys. Okay, it is really emphasized in that article. Okay, children, where are the children? Listen. Those are not toys, huh? Those are not toys. There's also a phenomenon called digital dementia. Children, school-age children, they just forget or they have cognitive problems because of using these devices. And then, interestingly, it also causes sperm damage. In Japan study, like putting your cell phone here, be careful, it's close to the, yeah, be careful, huh? In Japan, so they conducted this study in Japan, because in Japan, there's now a gradual decrease in fertility. You know, there are just few babies born there. What could be the reason aside from low interest in sex? Probably these Japanese males they don't have good quality sperms. So indeed, they found that in Japan study, there's a decreased sperm count and motility because of exposure to mobile phone emissions. So from now on, I will not put this in here anymore. I don't have offsprings yet. Good question. Yeah. Laptop connected to Wi-Fi. Don't put laptop near the testicles. It's laptop, right? So you put it there in your lap, but it's not good. Don't put them on your on top of your lap because it's close to the testicles. Huh? Vascular receptive? Okay. Now, actually, all manufacturers of smartphones have warning which describe the minimum distance at which phone must be kept away from others. If you are an iPhone user, go to settings, go to general, go to about, and go to legal, and you will find there the RF exposure or radio frequency exposure. That is how far you should expose yourself to cell phones. Yeah. Can you try it? So you will know. You go to settings, and then general, settings, general, about, and legal, and the RF exposure. You will find a number there, which is the limit. What is it? I'm sure this one also is present in Samsung users, LG, but I just don't know. Huh? Yeah, that is, but general, about, go to about, legal, and RF exposure. About 10 millimeters. Okay, that's how far you should. Yeah. Yeah, 5 mm, 10 mm? Yeah. How far is that? Okay? Yeah, that's how, that's safe to that point. That's why we're advised to use earphone, yeah, when we have calls. And this is a habit for many of us. When we sleep, we put our phones beside us, right? You are exposing yourself to radio frequency radiation every time. Okay? Yeah, 1 cm. Wow, that's very near, right? Yeah, so that's why we're advised to use earphones. Huh? No. Yeah, it's true. No, it's true. I would not advertise here. Those are the things that I cannot trust many of the information on Facebook. Okay. Yeah, and this is, by the way, this study is a review study, meaning they gathered the findings of many other studies. This is not just one person doing this study. Many studies from different parts of the world, and they kind of observe these trends. Okay? Blow dryer, does it emit radiation? Or, I'm not sure. Now, exposure limits for computers and tablets is set when devices are tested 20 centimeters away from the body. So the rule for your distance between laptops and yourself is 20 centimeters. Now, a few countries have already passed laws issuing warnings about children's use of wireless devices, like Turkey, Belgium, Australia, India, France. Some of these countries have given the law that devices like iPads and all this should not be sold to children. And I'm sure, yeah, you see this, like an iPad placed within a rattle, note that the device is immediately over the boy's testicles, right? And you have a 2-in-1 potty, which with activity seat for iPad. It's very convenient for you mothers or fathers to train these individuals. You just sit there and they have entertainment right there. But then they're exposed to radio frequency microwave radiation all the time. There's a 24-hour period. So be very careful. One more thing that we can teach children is emotionality. Emotional intelligence. Oh, yeah. Question? I think I think TV is still able to emit this kind of emissions. Yeah. Huh? Is it? Oh, probably. Yeah. I'm not sure with the distance. I'm not sure with the distance. Microwave ovens. Okay. Now, good question. Okay. Microwave radiation is a low energy type of radiation. Okay. And what it does is just the radiation that it emits is just able to interact with the water in our food, so that when it interacts with the water and water molecules there, it vibrates. So when it vibrates, it causes heat, right? So that's why our food is hot. But then scientists found out that it is not actually able to change the structure of the food, just making it hot, And cancer is a carcinogen is any substance that will cause DNA damage. Fortunately, with microwave radiation, because of our oven, it's not able to change the structure of that, even the food that we're eating. So it's okay. Huh? Not really. Not really. No. Yeah. Okay. So teaching emotional intelligence, this is very important. Okay. Oh, by the way, did I tell you the story about this eggplant? No? Oh, I didn't tell you. Huh? Okay. Now, I should tell you the story about eggplant. Okay, I couldn't find the copy, but anyway, it's all about extra talk and business talk. Now, there were, in a grocery store, there were 3 parents, and all these 3 parents have their own children. And so, one child with a parent went to the supermarket, and they saw an eggplant there. And then the child asked, "Mom, what is it?" The mother said, "I don't know. Don't ask that kind of question, So, meanwhile, for the other, the child asked his mom, "Mom, what is it?" And then the mother's reply was, "That is an eggplant, and we don't eat it." The third child asked his mother, "What is it?" And the mother said, "Oh, that is an eggplant. It has this kind of shiny skin. Let's cut it and let's open it to see what we can find out, if we go back home, try to see what is inside it." So you notice that there are these 3 differences in the way they explain the eggplant to the children. And of course, children who are exposed to this kind of stories where they are able to imagine because of this kind of talks given to them by their parents, they eventually become, better at cognitive aspects than those children who have been deprived of this explanation. So whenever children ask you questions, even though they're stupid questions, please try to give them explanations or answers. Don't be tired. After all, you give birth to them. Come on, you made them. Why don't you? Yeah, just don't say, shut up, Okay. And lifelong learning and treatment of brain injuries. Some people have stroke, and knowledge of the critical and sensitive period will be very important, because with stroke, you have a part of your brain which have been destroyed and you're not able to function well anymore. But when we scientists have knowledge about this critical period, we can actually modify them so that the brain cells can still make new neurons, the brain can still make new neurons, we can still make new cells, so on and so forth. So knowledge of these things are very important. And of course, lifelong learning. It doesn't mean that you're not able to play piano now. There's no more chance for you to play piano. Again, musical learning has only a sensitive period of development, so you can still learn many things, musical instruments, new language, with constant practice and with lots of attention. And we know the example of Jesus. He grew in wisdom and stature, in favor with God and with men. The Bible says Jesus grew in wisdom. That's mental or intellectual growth. He grew in stature. That's physical growth. Jesus grew in favor with God. That's spiritual growth. And Jesus grew in favor with men. That's social growth. Some of verses that I'd like to introduce today. Deuteronomy 6:7. Repeat these commandments again and again to your children. Young families, talk about them when you are at home and when you are on the road, when you are going to bed, and when you are getting up. It's like all day long. You have to remind children about the commandments. Too much importance cannot be placed upon the early training of children. The lessons learned, the habits formed during the first years of infancy and childhood have more to do with formation of character and direction of life than have all the instruction and training of the after years. It is during the first years of a child's life that his mind is most susceptible to impressions, either good or evil. During these years, decided progress is made in either a right or wrong direction. And many neglect their duty during the first years of their children's lives, thinking that when they get older, they will just be very careful to repress wrong and educate them right. You know, we have this kind of tendencies. Anyway, they will just learn these good behaviors themselves when they grow up, but it is not true. It says there, many neglect their duty during the first years of their children's lives. But the very time for them to do this work is when the children are babies in their arms. It is not right for parents to pet and humor their children. Neither it is right for them to abuse them. A firm, decided, straightforward course of action will be productive of the best results. Thank you. So, did you learn something? Question and answer, Sister Lavon. Huh? Oh, question. Yeah, but Sister